The Dice Tower, episode 579, Messin' Around Essen.
The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by USAopoly. Share laughter and make memories. Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's Spiel-focused show, Mandi and I recap our experiences in Essen and give a few game first impressions. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And we are con-crud free.
Yay! I know. People are going to be like, well, wait, Mandi, weren't you sick and sniffly? Yes, but that was before, and it was a sinus infection. Therefore, it is not con-crud. Let us be clear.
And I would be the first one kind of elbowing in here and saying, wait a minute, doesn't that make you patient zero? Are you sure it was a sinus infection? But I'm actually fairly confident in your assessment here because Mandi and I, we shared a bed for a week and I did not get sick. So it must have been something non-infectious that you were fighting.
It is absolutely, yes. It is not catching. It was definitely something I struggle with. I have a long-standing prescription of nasal spray. I know, how attractive. It's kind of gross, but it does the job. So the bed situation, OMG. I love it because it wasn't just us.
No, the whole crew. And this is a good lesson learned for next year, which I'm sure we'll have a few more as we think about it. It turns out that the hotel that a lot of people stay in, because it's right next to the convention center,
right,
the Atlantic Congress.
Yes.
It turns out they take reservations and they kind of allocate rooms based on the names on the room. So if you want 2 beds, you got to put 2 names attached to the room. Well, the powers that be, and like you said, Mandi, it wasn't just us, only put one of our names and one of Eric's names and one of Tom's names on our collective room block. So we all got hotel rooms with a single bed.
Yeah, it was. I feel though like this is not the first time for us. So it goes in 3. So I think we're due for another at some point. But
I know that I think Tom and Jason were rooming together and Jason ended up sleeping on like a shelf, basically where the TV, I don't know the whole story, but it's just very Jason.
I'm sure if you asked Jason about it, he would be more than happy to tell you about it.
Good point. But that's okay. We've like you said, we've shared a bed before and it's been fun. Because quite frankly, we get back, we're so tired at the end of the day at these kinds of conventions.
It's true.
We basically brush our teeth, get into bed, and pass out.
Oh, no, get into bed. It's hilarious, actually. Both have our iPads.
Yes.
So I have mine on my side, you have yours on your others, and we're watching our shows and then out. So, and I don't even think we move because I'm literally in the same position that I was when I went
Basically, we wake up in the same position we fell asleep in for sure. So it was fine. And Mandi, it's always lovely to be a roomie with you for a little bit.
Yeah,
so
same to
that
you.
worked out well. But, everybody, we're just back from Essen. We're kind of recuperating. I mean, really, around the world trip or halfway around the world trip, it's pretty draining. And so we're catching up. We went through double daylight savings.
Yes.
Which is because we hit it in Europe and then we hit it in North America as well. Mm-hmm. So we thought we'd keep this episode pretty Essen focused. We're definitely going to talk about a few games, but they're going to be very like first impression-ish because we even had time.
Right.
To play, enough plays to really formulate huge opinions. But we also thought we just for fun for us talk more about the convention itself. Now we talked a lot about what we were planning on doing differently. So how did that work out for you, Mandi, overall? Going into the show, we talked about some stuff that we wanted to do differently than our previous lesson. Now that we've done a second one, what worked out like from your planning and your adjustments?
So I definitely think I was more, I don't even want to say I was more focused because I actually kept it a little loose this year on the list. I did a list And, I had some ones that I starred that I wanted to stick to and a few others if I had the cash that I would get. So in that sense, I was budgeting a little bit better. And then I think I was better on the shipping back. I think last year, shipping back games was an issue for me. When I say shipping, I say carrying them back with me because I was overweight. And in my luggage.
Let's be clear, your luggage was over the limit.
My luggage was over the limit. So I already had the extra bag, which was expected. But then I had the extra bag that was overweight, and then that caused a problem. And it was huge money to get stuff back. And I didn't realize that overweight is actually, I would have been better having another bag than having a bag that was overweight.
Right.
So lesson learned. Yeah, lesson learned because I got dinged twice. I got hit by Lufthansa for the overweight and Air Canada last year. So, yeah. So definitely this year was much better. None of that happened. I paid one very minor, nominal fee to bring things back. Lufthansa was great, by the way. So was Air Canada. And yeah, so Air Canada was kind to me. We won't talk about how it treated other people, but...
I'll have to get that after the recording.
So yeah, so I was definitely better budget-wise and packing because my luggage was 50 pounds on the dot for both. So yes, thank you for having a scale. Usually I have it. This year I had to use Suzanne's.
Yeah. And that scale, oh my gosh, in our room, even though I feel like there were efforts made for us to be more conservative in our buying, there was still a pretty frenzied night before we flew out.
Yeah.
Punching and sorting and weighing and moving pieces around. And boy, that luggage scale got a workout.
Yeah, but nowhere near last year. Last year, I feel we punched out so much more.
Well, and last year we saved everything for the night before. This year we did it kind of as we went. And that was actually made a huge difference.
It did. Absolutely.
When you're punching out a lot of games at once.
Poor Ilka. Ilka wanted to spend time with us last year, Ilka Lutha. And we had what we call a punching party. So she pretty much punched games with us for hours.
Yeah.
So
for me, having cash was a huge difference. And apparently it was even harder for some of the credit card or, people who are trying to do credit card transactions. It was even harder for them this year. And even some of the native German companies that were there that normally can run credit cards, beyond the connection issues, they were having some kind of banking issue where foreign credit cards were just erroring for them, even though there was technically no issue. I ran into that twice and I heard, and I was talking to them, I'm like, oh, is it my card? And they're like, no, we've been hitting this a bunch.
Right.
So that was cash is king. I did not get robbed after last episode. I thought, I'm going to have all this cash. And then, thankfully that worked out pretty well. And then I just was for sure more organized. Right. I know, Mandy, you and I both had our lists. We organized them by halls.
Right.
You and I had the same break times, so we were running around the halls together for the most part. And that worked out really, really well. For being organized, even if you don't know the floor plan, but you have a really solid list of what booths in each hall you need to go to, that was massively helpful. And I'm sure most people already know that when they go to a big... I didn't. I'd never done that before, but that was a good one.
Yes.
Now, some of y'all who are listening or at our live show, some of y'all who are listening now may have tried to listen to the live show recording last episode. And we know the audio is rough. And it's an interesting thing. I know the spiel, Mandy, I don't know how, I'd be interested to hear how you feel about this. The spiel is turning out to be one of my absolute favorite conventions to go to, period. Mm-hmm. I think of all the quote unquote big conventions, hands down, my favorite. I love it. And we go to these shows and we do a live show.
Yeah.
We've done Gen Con and Origin, all this other stuff. The people at Essen, at the Spiel, are so wonderful. But the live show situation is rough, purely because of the microphones. And it's interesting to see how much it really impacts us as a group.
Yeah.
And kind of alters our dynamic and how we interact in a weird way. Because normally, we have always on mics. We just, there's a certain number of mics. Maybe we have to share it and we might hand it back and forth. But at the Spiel, for some reason, you have these microphones that you have to literally push a button to activate the microphone. And it just kind of takes away a lot of the natural banter or dialogue, the way that we kind of can jump in on each other and chat. It just makes it a little more stilted, which I feel bad about. I don't know how I think you don't care for it either.
Yeah. So for me, I think people enjoyed the show and I don't think they noticed it as much. I think we felt it, like if we wanted to jump in with a quick comment or something,
you can't.
You can't. And it's literally like someone says something, pause. Okay, let me press the button and then say it. But it's like the moment's gone then, Yeah. So the magic is gone for us in that respect. So I'm happy that people enjoyed the show and it was great and it was funny. But for us, I did feel it was a little stilted. That was a really good word to use. And it was just kind of awkward to try and jump in and make those fun comments because the mic situation just kind of hindered that. So that's the only thing. Because other than that, it's great. The crowd is always really lively, really interactive, lots of laughs. And like you said, Essen is probably like it's probably my favorite big convention. Like it's one I would love to go to every year. So yeah.
There you go. We've got to see a lot of games. We got to see a lot of people. But I don't know, Mandi, have you had a chance to play a ton since you've been back?
Well, okay. I'm not even gonna lie. I started playing through my Essen pile, but I've only given maybe about 10 games I've played, but once. I need to play them a bit more before I can talk about them. What about you?
Okay. I'm far worse. I've got little kids and all this other being away. There's a lot of family time catch up and stuff like that. But I've got my game night coming up, and then I've got this upcoming weekend, 2 game days. Oh, just hardcore Essen games hitting the table. So I'm going to get those plays in, but I haven't had a chance to play very many since I've been home. So I think it'd be cool if we talk a little bit about some of the games we either played at Essen or since we've been home, but want to set context that these are kind of probably going to be pretty much first impressions.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. So let's jump right in.
One of the nice things about being at a convention is we get to play games together, which doesn't happen all that often, really.
That's true.
And I know, Mandi, you're a fan of roll and write games. Obviously, I am. We couldn't go an episode without talking about a roll and write game. It's just not going to happen. Sorry, people. So I think the first one we should talk about is one that came out of nowhere.
Yes.
Literally out of nowhere. It wasn't even on BoardGameGeek.com until just like a day ago. And this is Bloxx, Bloxx. And this is a roll and write game inspired by Tetris, designed by Klaus-Jürgen Ried. Now, if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, maybe if I add designer of Carcassonne to the end of that, you might know the name. That's right. The designer of Carcassonne, Mr. Ried, has designed a roll and write game called Bloxx, published by Norris Spiel. It was It was €8.
Yeah, I mean, super cheap.
Of course, it is just a pad of paper and 2 dice, 2 custom dice. But nevertheless, what a steal at €8. You get a pad, you get these dice. The dice have polyominoes on them, and they have, in the shapes, they're kind of broken out into little individual squares, the way a polyomino is shaped. And one of those squares will have a circle, and the rest will have X's. And then you get these sheets, and the sheets just have a grid with little numbers scattered around in different spots, 3s, 2s, I think it goes up to 4. And then every other row, is it every other row, Mandi, or every third row? Yeah.
I think it's every other row. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Is colored. There's an orange row, green row. The colors don't matter. There's colored rows as well. And on a turn, the active player is going to roll those 2 dice and select one of them to draw onto or fill in on their sheet. Now, all the other players then get to pick one of the dice too. If let's say I roll and then Mandi wants to use the same die I did, well, Mandi can do that. You just lose the circle. Instead of being able to draw 3 X's in a circle, you'll draw 4 X's. And I know that this is hard. It's a visual thing. This is a visual puzzly kind of game. So it's hard to explain in audio format. So thanks for sticking with us. But the reason why those circles matter is the way you score points in this game are you want to position those circles as you're filling them in over the numbers. And then you'll score those points at the end of the game. And as the game progresses, you want to actually fill in those colored rows completely. In other words, don't kind of you don't let your shapes connect in such a way that it leaves a gap there.
Right.
Because at the end of the game, gaps and blank spots on your sheet are negative points. So you add up the points that you managed to circle with the little circles, you get points for the completed colored rows, subtract the points for blanks and gaps, voila. I don't know, Mandi. I think the way I explained that is possibly the most boring way to explain this game.
No, I think it's good. I mean, think Tetris, but with paper and dice.
And so you've played this a few times now, right?
Yes, and I realize I may have cheated in our first game. Not on purpose.
Oh, I knew it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, by the way, I didn't win, not even close. So my cheating helped me in no way, shape, or form. Literally. But I didn't. What happened was I didn't realize when you did scratchy marks on your colored lines, meaning that you left a gap, that doesn't count as completing that row.
Right.
Right. And I had one row, I think, like that, and I counted it as completing it. Oops.
It's okay. First games are always tough.
I learned my lesson. I still didn't win the next few times I played, but I understood it better. But yeah, I pulled this out with a few groups, and they love it. And they get excited. Ooh, it's like Tetris. Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, I can totally see this. Yeah, this is great. For me, I am really bad with spatial anything. So the mirroring aspect, because you can mirror the dice, I had a hard time. I literally had to take the dice and go, okay, let me see what it would look like this way. So I had to struggle with that a little bit, but I like the fact that you could do that and kind of make it work. But yeah, it went over really well. People really enjoyed it, and they had that Tetris feel to it. So it was something that they were familiar with. So I really enjoyed it.
That's great. It seemed like you were having fun when we were playing it together that first time. And I know it was an absolute hit for me. It is clean and simple. Certainly, if you have challenges with spatial reasoning, that's going to add a little bit of a stumbling block for you on this one. But I found the rule set to be so streamlined and the gameplay to be so engaging. And as you're playing, that die selection, losing those circles, all of these things become actually important. Planning on when you're going to leave gaps and where you're going to leave them, all of that stuff. It's simple, but there's more to it. You can definitely plan and try to mitigate as you're drawing and making choices up front. So that's exactly what I want out of Roll and Write. Something pretty simple and quick in general, but then rewarding as I go. So I'm glad you like it. And I think, Mandi, if I were to pick a theme out of Essen, certainly polyomino Roll and Write.
Yeah.
I think could be because Bloxx, which was a surprise, it wasn't on the preview list or anything like that. It wasn't even in BGG. So complete surprise to us.
Yeah.
Was there. But we knew about Bricks, the Wolfgang Warsch.
Yeah.
Also Tetris inspired.
Yeah.
There's one called Tag City.
Exactly.
Which is actually, we're going to talk about another game by that designer in just a second that is graffiti and using polyomino shapes again. And I will be talking about another game that actually did that later. Yeah. So thematically, clearly the Roll and Write space is exploring polyominoes, and I'm down with that.
No, I think it's great.
Down with
it's a different take on it, right? And something else when I played this game, I like to play with eventually I'll laminate the sheets. I haven't had time yet, but markers. I definitely like the look of the markers, and sometimes I'll use two colors instead of just one. It helps me differentiate where the lines are connecting. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah. So someone like me who's not very good with spatial reasoning, or other people who struggle with it, that's another way to kind of help differentiate, just using just different colors. And it might make you feel a bit more confident about placing. So something to try.
Yeah. And that was Bloxx from Nor's Spiel.
Yeah.
We also played, now we just mentioned Tag City, which is that graffiti Roll and Write. Now, we also got to play a word game by the same designer, Robin David, called Movable Type. Mm-hmm. Now, Mandi, I covered this on my Kickstarter segment for Board Game Breakfast a while back. Had you seen or heard about it before?
Just through what you had talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, and I hadn't played it, so
Right.
it was new to me for sure. This is published by Uncanny Cardboard, and it's what? It's like a drafting game where you're passing around letter cards, drafting them to form words. There's 3 common letters in the middle that you can always use. There were objective cards that had famous authors on them. It was kind of a nice,
It was cute.
right? It was a thematic flair. That gives you special scoring conditions each round that you can try to achieve for some kind of bonus. It might give you bonus letters or something like that. And ultimately, you're making these words. That's great. You can try to get those bonuses. That's great. But you're kind of vying for the ability to be first, because then you get to take cards that were played that round and set them aside in a hold pile.
Right.
I don't remember what the
I don't remember the
was
technical
for
term.
Schmerms. You put it for there, and then you do it again and again and again. And I think you play through 10 rounds. And so you're slowly collecting this little pile of hold cards. Because even if you come in last in a round, you're still going to get to keep a card.
Right.
And then in that last round, what you do is you take those cards that you've been collecting and you form a word using those. And to win the game, that is the only word that counts. So really, all the rest of the game is about making good enough words to get good picks of cards, and then making sure as you're looking at those cards, you're picking good cards that will form a great word at the end of the game, because that's the game winner.
Yeah.
All those previous rounds are just build up into that last powerhouse round to form a great word. And that was the whole thing. I mean, it played pretty quickly, and it's a word game. I find word games, Mandy, I find them to be very divisive. There are people out there that just detest word games. And then there are people out there that just love them.
Yes.
And so where do you kind of fit on that spectrum?
Well, see, for myself, I like word games. I mean, they're great for me to play with my mom. I mean, everyone knows I'm a teacher, so something else you can, when I was in the classroom, they were really great to play. But I do find amongst my friends, I'll be honest, I would say majority of my friends are not fans of word games, whether it be because they were just not great at spelling, it's just not something that interests them. It has really split our groups in the fact that, no, they're not really into it. You either have to really like word games or not. When you're kind of about it, I don't find that you find them enjoyable. Now, something I may just touch on later is Spell Smashers, the game that Renegade has brought out. A lot of people gravitate toward that because it has a different spin on it, because now you're fighting monsters with your words. So people like that aspect, and I think that might draw people in versus just a straight word game. But yes, I do find it's a very divisive type of game. But I personally really enjoy a good word game. This was really great. I had some great words throughout the game. My last word, not so much. So didn't use where it counted. I don't know.
Now, do you think that was just first play ignorance, in which you weren't really necessarily strategizing how you're taking those letters as you're putting them in your hold pile? Or do you think that it was just luck, or...
It was just, there were a couple, I think there was a couple words in the game where I just didn't pick enough vowels. I thought I had been picking enough vowels, but I needed, I think it was like an E or an A or something like this. I needed that second one, and I would have made the best word ever, but I just wasn't smart in my picks near the end. And I think that's what did me in.
Yeah. I typically really like word games. I know a lot of people feel it's vocabulary based, and I would say this one doesn't feel intensely vocabulary based. So people with stronger vocabularies will have a huge advantage.
Right.
I think the drafting element mixes that up. I think it's more about being flexible and able to access the vocabulary that you have, and being able to plan ahead. I mean, once you understood the flow, as you're picking those hold cards,
right,
really thinking ahead to like, what kind of word can I form with what I'm gathering is super important. And I think that that's an interesting twist. I'm definitely, we both have copies of the game now, so I'm definitely looking forward to trying more of Movable Type.
Yeah.
Now, Mandi, you, and I got to admit, it was interesting to kind of look over every once in a while and watch y'all play this game. You got to play a game with, let's see, Eric.
Yes.
And Sam.
Yeah. And then Sarah from Renegade Games.
Sarah Erickson. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about this one.
Oh, boy. So let me preface this by saying a lot of people walked by with us watching this game. They saw us kind of laughing, having fun. It was not about the topic. It was more about we would make absolutely horrible team of nurses for anyone. So that was where that was coming from. So let's just be clear about that. So the game that I'm referencing is Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. So this is designed by Michael Fox II and Rory O'Connor. Artist is Bryn Jones, and the publisher is Asmodee and Hub Games. It plays 2 to 4 players in about 45 to 60 minutes. So again, we only played the first scenario, so I'll just give a quick overview of the game. It's cooperative, and we're supposed to be working as nursing staff, and we're providing care for the terminally ill. So it is more of a somber topic. In this case, Billy is rushed to hospital because he had a heart attack on a flight from Sydney to London. So when the game starts, you don't have a lot of information. You just know that Billy Kerr is your patient, 60 years old, and has been given a certain amount of days to live. Us as the team, we're trying to give Billy, proper care. So trying to heal him through the rounds, respond to medical emergencies, but we also want to gain his trust. So we want to get some conversation out of him. This is important in the game because we have cards that come out that will kind of tell the story of Billy, and we need to try and match them and make the picture clearer because some of these cards that comes out is kind of muddled. We need to keep Billy talking in order to get a clearer picture of his life in order to kind of go forward through the game. So in the game, there's, I think, 10 scenarios, and basically you want to try and piece together his life while healing him. We only played the first one, and in the first one, you do certain actions, which I touched on, which are throughout a turn, you have to try to heal him at least once, try and get more of his story out. And you're doing this as a team of nurses, but you want to make sure that you're not working overtime. This happened a couple of times where we were having people working on more than one card in a turn, which caused them to take overtime. And if you take overtime, that can kind of pull you out of the game. So it sounds basic enough. Like I said, we didn't touch on every piece of the game because we didn't play the first scenario. So I'm sure there would have been more going through. Unfortunately, Billy did not make it in our care, but I know, but like I said, I think we were not the best suited nurses for Billy in this case. So we didn't make it. This game has had a lot of hype online. I've seen a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people say how, amazing I think it is. And I want to start off by saying, I think it's great that they did a topic that was different than what other people are doing. It's something that's serious. It's something that's real. So that I appreciate very much. This game did not give me any of the feels. I just felt it was okay.
Interesting.
I didn't have a connection. Like I felt with this kind of topic, and I know I do a lot of volunteer work in hospitals. My mom's a nurse, so I'm very familiar dealing with this type of situation. I didn't feel the connection. Now, bearing in mind, we only played the first scenario. I think going forward, maybe that might have changed, but just based on the first one, I didn't feel that connection to the game and have the urge to go, okay, do I want to push forward? But like I said, I can give them kudos for taking a somber topic and making it interesting and wanting to learn. There definitely is that abstract kind of piece with your laying out the cards to kind of Billy's thoughts and trying to make them clearer and to understand. And, your target is to try and to get that puzzle. I think it's like, can't remember if it's 4 or 6 cards you have to try to make clear. It was a while since when we played it at Essen, but you're trying to, I know.
In reality, it's been just over a week.
It's over a week. But my memory is so short. If it's not 3 days ago, then I don't remember the whole thing. But you have certain cards you need to make clear to kind of fix that, solve that puzzle. So otherwise, if he dies, well, game over. But if you solve the puzzle before he dies, then that's great. Then you move on to the next scenario. So that was more abstract than I thought. And I know I'm not the only one who thought that. So I wasn't expecting that part of it. And I just don't know. I liked it. I just don't know how it tied in with the other part of the game. I didn't feel it was connected enough for me. So I think the connection was a bit lost, and I just wasn't expecting that abstract element with the thoughts, I guess, or trying to clarify his thoughts. So I definitely didn't feel as engaged with the game. But like I said, it's one of those games where I think maybe you have to push forward to maybe 1, 2, or 3 scenarios, and then from there determine if it's a game that you would like. So appreciate the topic. I appreciate the take on it. I just don't know if it's for me. But like I said, I've only played the one game, so it's hard for me to solidify and say I don't like it. Eric definitely was not too happy with a lot of our decisions during the game.
Interesting.
So I'm hoping Eric talks about this at a future date. So that is...
I'm sure he will.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I know that was his number one anticipated title, I think.
It was. And I know him and I had some similar thoughts, but he may have played it since then because this was his copy.
Sure.
And he may have some more to interject on that. So that is Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr.
Well, thanks for that's really interesting. I have a copy of it too, and I've actually had a struggle getting it to the table because of the subject matter. Now, I know the people behind the game, and of all the people that create a game about a fairly sensitive topic in a really respectful but interesting way, I think this is a team I trust to do it. It's just, you're at a game night and all of a sudden, for some reason, we're really struggling to make that shift into, okay, let's play a game where we're hospice nurses trying to save this man's life. And we just haven't been in the right mood. It's kind of an oddity, but I actually think the puzzly piece of it sounds interesting. So I'm looking forward to trying it.
It's interesting. I just didn't get I don't think there was a strong enough connection.
Yeah. Now, as an aside, which has nothing to do with the gameplay, it was we can talk about how wonderful the spiel is. And I know you and I just love the show, Mandy, but it's not all sunshine and roses and games all the time.
Absolutely.
You can be hungry, you can be tired, whatever. And unfortunately, sometimes bad things happen. And Hub Games, the publisher of Holding On, was one of the first publishers robbed at the convention, which was so sad. And then it turned out, I think at least 5 total publishers were robbed at the show that I heard about. Yeah. They did catch at least one of the robbers. It was quite the thing there, but it was a shame for such a great team to have to go through that. And they had such a great attitude about it. And so I'm really glad, if nothing else, that there was a lot of talk about Holding On. I saw a lot of people carrying a copy around the show.
Absolutely did. And definitely I would love to hear from anyone who's played it past scenario 3 and to give me their thoughts. So there you go. So you can hit me up on Instagram or any other social media and let me know what your thoughts are.
I played a very different game than you while you were over there. I was playing a game called Mesozooic from Z-Man Games. This is designed by Florian Fay, and the really delightful art is by Atta Kanani. And it plays 2 to 6, which I actually think is a fine... this is one of those games that actually scales well. Even though I've only played it once, I suspect it'll play well. Basically, you're building... I guess Jurassic Park. The whole punny name there, Mesozoic. Yeah, I know. You're drafting cards, and the cards represent different attractions or elements that you would put into Mesozoic theme park. Right. So some have dinosaurs and not containers, but exhibits. Some have little carts, and some have paths. Some have tramways, all this stuff. And so you're going to draft cards. And then once everybody's drafted, you're going to shuffle them up and lay them out in a random grid in front of you, kind of a 3x3 grid. And then the timer gets flipped because there's a sand timer in this game. There is a real-time element. And I know that probably more than 50% of everyone out there just went, fast forward.
Yeah, I'm part of that group. So let's keep hearing this.
Right? Yeah. And so... It's a time-based element where then you have whatever, I think it's a minute, maybe 90 seconds in this sand timer to slide these cards around to position them the way you want to optimize on the scoring factors. And you're sliding them around like you do with those little plastic slider puzzles that you had as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
That you'd get as cheap prizes when you went to the dentist or something like that, which I was awful with those puzzles as a kid. I never could finish one. I was terrible at them. But that's what you're doing. You can only use one hand, and you're sliding these cards around, and you're trying to get, because connected paths score points. And if you have trucks next to certain exhibits, you get points. And if you have statues, they count as points, blah, 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 right? All that stuff. So you're trying to, based on what you manage to draft, trying to move them into the right position before the sand timer ends. Now, I will reiterate, I'm not good at those slider puzzles. And I kept on saying that during the game. And then Tom, who I was playing with, was kind of side-eyeing me because I kind of crushed him.
Oh, you did not?
In the game.
That's awesome.
And Jason, too. No. I beat Jason Levine.
Wait a second. Are you, like, seriously? Like, nobody ever beats Jason.
I, for reals, beat Jason Levine in a game. Yeah, it's got that sliding thing. The art is absolutely charming. I know Jason was saying that he didn't feel like it was enough time in the sand timer to really do that. On the other hand, maybe that's the point.
Sure.
I actually really liked it. Maybe it's because I won, but it's different. Now, if you don't like timed elements, I'm on the side that I'm okay with timed elements.
Right.
So I had fun. It was light. It was quick. I like tile games, grid games that score based on adjacency, like Between Two Cities and even things like Carcassonne and stuff like that. So that just kind of hits a happy place for me anyhow. So Mesozoic, I had fun with it. I think it's charming. It wasn't my copy, it was Tom's copy. I might actually go out and pick up a copy of this one because it had its charm. I had a lot of fun sliding those things around, and maybe I'll win another game. Who knows?
Would you say it's geared toward like younger audience, or anyone can play?
I think anybody could play, but I think I don't know. I could if I get a copy, I'll try it with my kids. I think that the timer, I would extend the timer if I was playing with younger kids.
A minute's not long. If you're playing with
stressful.
Yeah, and I think for younger children it might longer length of time might be better.
Yeah.
All right. So the next game that I will talk about, or that I played when I was at Essen, was Wreck Raiders. So this is designed by Tim W.K. Brown and Josh Capel. Artist is Apolline Etienne, and the publisher is Kids Table Board Games, or BG. 2 to 4 players, and it's 45 minutes. So this game was on Kickstarter. Now, before everyone starts going, why are you talking about this? I don't believe it's available yet, and I don't think it's shipped yet, but it is coming. So I think they have 2019 listed as their date. So just in case you're looking for it, it is not available as of yet. So Wreck Raiders is a dice drafting worker placement game. Definitely has a family kind of theme to it. So it's definitely geared toward that type of group, but anyone can play. In the game, you're choosing a die from a pool. And the pool is actually in the board game cover. Did I say that right? Board game cover. Yes. Inside the cover, there are like little spaces.
Oh, literally the physical cover of the box.
Cover of the box. So when you turn it over, you throw the dice in. Where they land, you want to kind of try and put them in. You know, if they land on a line where there's like a circle, you pull it in the circle, and there might be like a starfish or something like this. And these are things that you can gain because they help you acquire certain building pieces in the game. So when you roll the dice, you throw them into this box, move them to the corresponding spaces, and then when you're ready to draft them, if there is something in that circle where you've drafted the die, you get that item as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So you choose a die from the pool, and then you send your divers, because in the game it's about looking for treasures, sending your divers in, and you send them out to a space on the board with that number. So on the board, you're going to have a beach at the top, and then the rest is the water. Basically, you're underwater diving, and each of the areas basically specializes in a certain type of treasure. So if I drafted a 6, I would go to a 6 either on, the purple treasure or the yellow treasure or the blue treasure, but I have to pick one of those spaces. So the spot you choose is important because you can actually help divers that are beside you. So if you go to a spot and there's a diver beside you, you get the treasure, but they also get the treasure. So this is why you want to make sure that you're putting your divers around you, so then when you place, you're getting multiple treasures versus giving them to other people. You can also get booted out of spaces, sent to the beach, which can also yield some results, but kicking them back to you is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does move you out of spots where you could potentially get more treasures. Getting these treasures allow you to build museum exhibits. You have your own board where you're trying to build museum exhibits, so you can score them depending on having the same type of treasure or having different types. And then there are these cards that you're trying to complete. So think of them as objective cards based on the types of treasures that you're collecting. These are going to get you special abilities that you can use for round, or extra points at the end of the game. So when the game ends, you're going to earn coins or points for your exhibits, your vault, which is something else that you're also trying to do kind of set collection of with your treasures, and your aquariums. So aquariums are something you can acquire throughout the game. They're open display, but remember those things I was talking about in the beginning, like starfish, shells, those sorts of pieces? You use those to get aquariums. And the aquariums can basically give you some scoring at the end of the game based on, okay, if you have this many starfish in there, then you count how many you have, and this can give you points. So depending on the type of aquarium you build, can depend on the types of points you get at the end. And the player with the most coins wins. That is a lot, and it's really hard to picture without seeing it.
Sure.
But it gives you a general gist of how the game works. So it's definitely a family-oriented or like a lighter kind of worker placement game. It has the dice, which is nice. Oh, wow, that totally rhymed. I'm sorry, it totally was not intentional. It has a good theme. I mean, I'm really all into the diver theme, considering that I picked up a game called Underwater Cities, so I'm definitely feeling the, that kind of thing. The colors on the game, I know it was just a prototype, are gorgeous, so the art, I think, is going to be fantastic, but I'm very familiar with Eppelin's art from previous games. It's definitely a game I'd have to play again. I only got to play the one game, and we were at the booth playing it, and we had a lot of interest from people walking by, so that shows that people definitely like the look of the game. I like the fact that you had different ways of collecting. Like, it was very much worker placement, but there was also some set collection going on. So I like the fact that you could get points through your aquarium, you can get points through your vaults, or through, you had decisions to make. Do I put it in my vault, or do I put it in my exhibit? Where am I going to get more points? So I like the fact that it was allowing you to have different types of decisions. So definitely on the simpler scale, but I like the fact that they give you a variety of ways to score points. So overall, I liked the direction it was going. I really liked the art direction that was on it. I definitely would like to play it again because I feel like the one play wasn't enough to say, okay, do I love it? So we're in the like right now, but I definitely think I want to give it another go. So that is Wreck Raiders. Have you played this one?
I haven't. I covered it on Kickstarter, and I remember it on Kickstarter. I thought, oh, it's doing some interesting things with those rounds with the workers, and the fact that there's give and take and things like that. I think it looks really interesting, and it's definitely one I kind of am interested in checking out. So it's good to hear that it was intriguing enough. And you were in a all grown up game situation.
Right.
I have kids.
Exactly.
So sometimes when you're talking, it's interesting as you're talking about these things and you talk about how it might be geared to more of a family situation with a wider age range of players at the table. My ears perk up.
Exactly.
Right. And I'm all of a sudden I become more interested in it sometimes. So I'm looking forward to checking it out. It's really pretty too. I think it looks really good.
It's gorgeous. I'm really excited. And well, it has that Canadian touch to it. So
oh, you Canadians.
I know. We're everywhere. We're everywhere.
But mostly just in Canada.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up with I'm going to talk about one more roll and write. It has to happen. I'm sorry, people. And this is one that's going to be available next year, early-ish next year. I got to play basically a almost complete prototype of the new Patchwork roll and write called Patchwork Doodle, designed by Uwe Rosenberg, who's literally one of my all-time favorite designers, and being published by Lookout Spiel. So we just talked about how Essen has a ton of polyomino-based roll and writes, and here's another one coming out early next year, but it's based on patchwork. And I think that pretty widely within hobby gamers, Patchwork is well loved.
Oh, yeah.
As a really clever two-player game using those different shapes and things like that. So, of course, I'm interested in Patchwork Doodle. And thematically, it feels it very much feels like a roll and write sibling to Patchwork for sure. You've got cards that have those shapes printed on them, basically. And they get shuffled up and laid out in a ring with a pawn in between them. And then there's a die, and the die is rolled, and then that will determine how far the pawn will move, and then that determines which card you will have access to. So you roll the die, you move forward 2 spaces, the pawn lands on a card, everybody draws that shape on their grid, and you keep on going. There are 3 scoring rounds, and each round you're looking for your largest filled in square. So if you have a 5x5 square that's all filled in with various little other pokey out bits around it, then you would score based on that. Okay. If you have a 6x5 rectangle, you're going to score the 5x5 and get bonus point for that extra full row. So if you have a 7x5, you get a 5x5 plus 2 bonus points, 1 for each of those extra rows. I found that scoring a little clunky at first as you're figuring that out, but once you get it, you get it. It's not a big deal. And having played it just the once, now I know when I tackle it again, boy, oh boy, focusing on getting those squares so that you maximize your earlier scoring round is super duper important. There are a few special abilities, which are kind of neat. One of the special abilities is you can virtually slice a shape in a straight line, so you can alter how it's shaped. That comes in handy. There's also one that lets you pick a different shape than the one that was selected. So I like that there's a little special abilities that can not lock you into that, and it adds a little variability so everybody's sheet they're not always doing the exact same thing. It feels very much like Patchwork, and that round scoring is absolutely critical to grok early game to get those squares really focused, because I had a nice wide swath that was solidly filled in, but it didn't score me as many points as a neighbor because it wasn't a square. And and I ended up losing partly because of that. So that was a good lesson learned there. I will say this, and it's interesting, you mentioned it earlier with Bloxx as well, Mandi. The thing with the fill-in roll and writes, which the polyomino are, same with Tag City, Bloxx, Patchwork Doodle, the ones where you're filling in shapes, pencils just aren't going to cut it.
No.
You're either just Xing in the squares or whatever, but really thicker markers would do the job way better.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's something. I ended up drawing little patterns, and I got all cutesy with it, with little hearts and little stars and polka dots, and that was fun, and it added a little thematic flair.
Right.
But straight out, I think ultimately you'll tire of that, and you'll just end up Xing them out and things like that. It's kind of a weird comment, I know, but it's something that stood out. And the fact that you mention it with Bloxx, I think, is interesting as well.
I think it's just because I rely so heavily on visual. And I think that exactly what you're saying here, someone who thinks like me is going to need that differentiation. So no, I'm glad you brought it up here as well.
Yeah. So Patchwork Doodle, it will be coming out early next year. Of course, I enjoyed it. I love Patchwork. I love roll and writes. I have a few minor nits about this after my first play, but it definitely felt strategic.
Okay.
And I like, whereas opposed to Bloxx, where you never know what shape you're going to get. Right. In Patchwork Doodle, you know you're going to get one of those shapes eventually.
Right.
You can kind of plan ahead. I know sooner or later that zigzag shape is going to be mine.
Right.
And you can think about that. And I like that ability to plan for it. And I think that that's one of the small elements that sets Patchwork Doodle apart when it comes out.
I'm excited. I play Patchwork with my mom. She loves it. So there you go. Another one to add to the family, potentially.
There you go. Mandi, I know we're still recovering from Essen, and hopefully to y'all listening out there, you'll find this. But I thought it would be fun for us to talk just about a few of the moments that stood out at Essen specifically. We always talk a lot in generalities.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crowded. Oh, the people, which I don't mean to sound dismissive of it, but it is. It's like the people are wonderful, but we say that a lot. I thought it might be fun to talk about a few specifics. What do you think?
I think that's good.
So we'll talk about a few specific memories or moments from the spiel this year, and then call it an episode. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan. All right. Well, it's time to just wrap it up, but we're not going to leave you hanging. We thought, hey, let's throw in a few little fun things that we've learned, surprise finds, all sorts of stuff that, we want to tell you about. So let's start off with surprise find. What was your surprise find at Essen, Suzanne?
One of the interesting things about, and I think Eric's talked about this a little bit, there's fewer surprises coming out at shows because the internet makes it so easy to access information. Bloxx would have been the big surprise, but we just talked about that. So I wanted to pick something different, but Bloxx was not that was probably the biggest one. For me, it was a game called Tasso. This is from a smaller publisher out of, I believe, Korea called Open and Play. Okay. And this is a publisher I am keeping my eye on. And I'm going to make an effort to kind of highlight a few more of their games because I like what they're doing. They're finding interesting designers, getting the rights to their games, classic designers even in some cases, but just really putting a beautiful polish on the production in the art or the production quality.
Right.
And in the case of Tasso, I think it's just a great example of this publisher having a great eye for a strong, simple game. Now, Mandi, you didn't get to play this, but if you don't remember Tasso, this is the one you were watching us play with some of our friends from Chip Theory Games.
Oh, yes.
With the sticks. And it looks dead simple. It is a game with a pretty round wood green base and then a bunch of not Jenga sticks per se. They're longer and skinnier. They're more, but just sticks. And you take turns putting sticks on this plate. And there's, when two sticks are nearby, you could place one on top that kind of bridges it. But each stick can only have one piece on top of it. So once basically a piece has been used as a bridge bottom, it can't be placed on again. And the rules are literally 3 short paragraphs long. It takes 2 seconds to teach. It's dead simple. And we were all kind of like, oh, good, goofy, dexterity game, whatever, blah, it'll just be silly fun. Oh, no. This game had tension. Placement became absolutely critical. We were really figuring out, trying to gauge the space that it was a surprisingly thoughtful game to play, totally engaging. We were standing up, moving around, holding breaths as things were happening. It was a complete and utter delight, a gorgeous production, and a really good example of how sometimes the simplest of games can be some of the most fun. So that was Tasso from Open and Play.
And I can say as a spectator, I had just as much fun watching you all play as I'm sure the play was. So
awesome. What about you?
Speaking of simple games, one of the games that was a surprise find for me is a game I've actually played before, but I was not able to find it in Canada, and it was even tough to find in the United States. It's called Linja. So this was taught to me by a friend, Tracy, who I used to do a segment on Board Game Breakfast with. And her and Stefan, her husband, showed this game to me. And I said, wow, this is so much fun. So this is published by, they have a few listing here. Foxmind, Gameland. Who was specifically the booth? Do you remember? They made all the wooden games. And there was another one.
Darn it, I can't remember their name off the top of my head, but they do all those gorgeous wood abstract games. I know Foxmind is there.
It is, yeah.
North American distribution arm.
Okay. So there was another game that they had that I wanted to bring home. I think we both wanted to, and we went, oh, it's just too heavy. But Linja is so great. Just a quick overview of it. It literally is like a bunch of like bamboo sticks, and it has wooden pieces. They're kind of knobby looking pieces in red and black. So it's a 2-player game. And basically you're trying to get your row of knobs into the other person's end. And yeah, that sounds really bad. I'm so sorry. They're pieces. Let's just go with that. Oh dear. You're trying to get your pieces into their kind of end zone of the sticks because the sticks are laid down flat consecutively all the way to that player's end. So from your end to their end. And then your pieces are placed in at the bottom in a line, and theirs are placed at the top in a line as well. And you're trying to move into each other's space. And I think whoever gets 3 of them in wins. It's been a while since I've played it. It sounds super simple and honestly so much fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. So Linja, I was really happy to find it. I even convinced Suzanne to grab a copy, so I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that she enjoys it.
You didn't even, your excitement level, you're a pretty up person in general. Your excitement level when you saw that little box was, and I think you saw it from a distance. I don't know what happened, but you were like, ninja. And I didn't even know what word you said. But boy, oh boy, that energy cranked to 11. I'm like, there's no way I'm not buying. Whatever game gets you that happy, I got to have it. So yeah, I have not gotten to play it yet, but I'm looking forward to trying it.
So excited. So I can't wait for you to try it. And then I cheat a bit here because I have another one. This is kudos to Suzanne because I think this was her number one. And I was like, okay, it was on my list, but I didn't know much about it. And it's Airship City. And this is published by Analog Lunchbox. Now, to be fair, I have actually played this once and spoiler, I love it. Surprise mine. So thanks, Suzanne. Really enjoyed it. I am very excited to play it again. And I feel so bad because it seems to be one that's going to be difficult to get in North America. So shout out to anybody in North America who might want to pull this game in. But thanks, Suzanne. And hopefully other people will be able to play it soon. But you get to build focus on building like your airship city and in making it better. And you have spaces on the board that help you get resources and you can build buildings. And I mean, that's the gist of it. There's a bit more. There's definitely some planning and thinking. It is on the heavier side, but so good. So I won't give away too many spoilers till we talk about it on the show, but Airship City, love it.
Wow. I'm torn, Andy. I am torn between being so happy that you enjoyed the game. I really am so delighted that you were able to get a copy because it sold out at the Spiel. I was really happy that you got a copy, and I'm really happy that you enjoyed it. So I'm torn between that and just being seething. I am seething with envy because I have not gotten to play this game, and it was my number one. And you did, and you.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad, but not really.
I'm flooded with envy. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'm glad you like it. And we're going to move on.
Exactly. Something delightful like food. Favorite food item. What did you, that was tasty at the show?
So much tasty. And I wish it's a little wonky. I mean, it certainly gets chaotic at the peak times with all the food, and there's a gyro stand and crepes and the swirly potatoes, which
so good.
I still have not had because somebody went without me.
I'm sorry. I went with Ilka. It was just calling our names.
But I have to say, a friend brought by something called Vlaai. And apparently it's actually a Dutch treat. But Vlaai apparently also means something kind of not food.
Oh.
It's not something you would typically associate with a food item, but Vlaai ended up being a pie sampler. It's a magical item, people. You open this box and it's round and it's in slices, but imagine a pie, but every slice is a different beautiful flavor.
So I just looked it up. So it's flan.
What?
They call well, I just looked it up and it says flan. The translation in English is flan, which is my version of flan is very different than that. But yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good because what I was told was it was something different. So we're going to move. That's great. Okay. Maybe I misheard, or maybe my friend who told me this story was wrong. But there was like a slice of cherry and a slice of apple and a slice of German chocolate and whatever Mandi stole from me. Like we were sharing it. And Mandi takes a bite. She's like, ooh, I want this one. She took the fruity custard one from me. But
that's great.
People, I don't know why this doesn't exist more in North America. I'm envious. I'm jealous. I want it. Vlaai is amazing. So all you European people that have access to it, tip of the hat to you. I am jealous.
It was delightful, but come on. It was very hilarious to see Sam take the only kind of chocolatey looking one, and Tom was like, no!
There was going to be blood, yeah.
It was pretty funny. Well, for me, I do not know the technical name, so if somebody knows, please, you can write it. Let us know. It's the swirly bread. So it's swirly bread with cinnamon and sugar. So I don't know if in German, is that Zimtzucker? Is that how it's said?
Oh gosh, I just know however you and I try to pronounce it, it's always wrong.
It's always wrong. I'm sure someone will tell me how to say it properly, which is totally fine. That way I'll know for next time. But the swirly bread, it's literally swirly bread that has cinnamon and sugar, and it's so good. And it's so good when it's hot. When they just make it, and you're like, ooh, burn, and then you eat it, and it's soft and delicious. And yeah, so that was quite good.
I saw a few of those consumed during the show, for sure.
They made its way to our booth, and it didn't matter who it belonged to. You'd have a piece, and then it was like hard to get off, right? Because it would keep swirling off, so you have to break it off. But you couldn't stop eating it. I think I was even hungry, and I was eating them, and I'm like, wow, that wasn't even mine, and I just ate half of it.
Thankfully, the booth was, thankfully or not thankfully, depending on your point of view, it was right by the Dice Tower booth, so.
It was perfect. Oh, my goodness.
Okay, Mandi, we did some better things. I know you and I have talked about this just between the two of us. Definite improvement. Not that it was bad last year, but we learned some lessons. So, but nothing's ever perfect. So what are some lessons that we learned this year that if we're lucky enough to get to go again in the future, we'll try to improve our next trip to the Spiel?
All right. Well, I'm going to start with the easier things. For me, less clothes. So, yes, I know. I like to wear...
oh my gosh. I'm going to die.
Okay, come on. I didn't bring that many clothes, and I actually went early, so I was there like 3 days early. Okay, listen, I had to bring some clothes to like pad the games, okay? But I think I think I brought one outfit too many, and that was a bit of an issue. I kept the big dresses to a minimum, okay? So let's just start with that. So I definitely think I could have gotten away with maybe bringing like dish detergent for clothes, buying some there, and actually washing clothes and bringing less outfits, like one skirt and then different tops or something like that. So I think that could have been planned a little bit better on my part. I know you're going to touch on this, so I'll leave this next one for you. But lastly, making more time to demo games. I feel like that's something we just don't do enough at cons. And I know it's hard because we're really busy, but Tom, the scheduling was really good this year. And I feel like we should have made a bit more time to do that. We had a lot of running around and meetings and stuff, but making the time to demo, even if it's for 15 minutes, I think that's something I'd like to improve on for both of us, sit down and play more games. So that's something for next year we're going to try and do better. What about you?
Dare to dream, Mandi.
I know.
Sure. Well, I think the one that you were referencing for us is, and obviously we're extremely lucky to be in this position, but getting games from the convention to our hotel room. Well, certainly on that first day when we were making a big effort to buy all the games so we didn't have to do it on the more crowded weekend days. Oh, we were loaded down. And wheels. Anything with wheels, anything that would have helped us. So maybe our luggage, right? Bring one of our empty suitcases with us so that we could at least have something wheels, because juggling 8 different strappy bags on our arms and our hands and shoving things in back. It was tough. I love so many things about our hobby, except it's a heavy. Everything is so heavy, Mandi. It's very pokey with the corners on the boxes. They don't feel good when they jab into your side. So
agreed.
Wheeled conveyance. And then it was cold and blustery in Germany at the time, and it rained a lot.
Yeah.
But inside, it was hot.
Oh, yes. HAWT, not HOT. HAWT, hot.
Hot. And I wasn't quite ready for that, to be honest. So I was, so layers, lesson learned. And also I didn't plan for the rain either, which was that's on me. But Mandi, you had an umbrella, and I was very envious of your umbrella, and that I will be procuring an umbrella my next trip to the Spiel for sure.
It was quite handy, I must say.
A lot of good moments. I know, and so many good moments. Obviously, we could talk for hours and hours about all the wonderful things that happens at the Spiel. So, and we won't do that to y'all. Don't worry. But I mean, let's call out a few of the extra special moments that we had. Specific things that kind of made it special for us.
Yeah. So I know for myself, I was so happy, and I know you got one as well, receiving the crochet dolls. I think it's called amigurumi from Doris. So I won't give Doris' last name. I don't know if she's comfortable with that, but her family came to the booth, and presented us with these crochet dolls, and they are so adorable. And I think we really appreciated the time that she put in. She wasn't able to make it due to health reasons, but really wanted us to know, hey, I'm thinking of you and I made these for you. And I think that was really special. I love it. It's sitting on my dresser right now beside my little tea dragon. So it goes really well. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And that really touched me. So the time that it took to do that. So thank you so much. And also a shirt from Otter. And this is fun because Otter joins us on our
live Q&As.
Live Q&As. And he said something that just stuck with me. I thought it was hilarious. And he got it made into a shirt. So he was able to give me mine. Suzanne's wasn't ready, so he's going to mail it to her. But we were talking about games and overproducing games and things like that. And the slogan that he came up with was, I'm not high maintenance, I'm just overproduced. I died. That is amazing. And it's on a shirt. So thank you so much. I can't wait to wear it on another upcoming Q&A. So thank you.
That's
so
a good
much.
idea. That's a really good idea. I like that idea.
Yeah. What about you, Suzanne?
I think one of the greatest things about going to conventions in general, especially these larger conventions, I mean, I'm not a fan of crowds. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of traveling. I'm a homebody, which is why board gaming in some ways is such a great hobby for me. But going to these huge conventions, you get to meet people in the industry. And it's one of the things is you have to remember these are just people.
Yeah.
And so that's cool. And I'm lucky enough to have made, friendships with a lot of people in the industry at this point. But every once in a while something special happens or you meet somebody that I have special respect for. So one of those things is I got to meet Wolfgang Kramer. And Wolfgang Kramer is just I mean, I can't even describe how I think influential his game designs are. Absolutely. And how much, and you hear like Kramer and Kiesling all the time, design, they've partnered up on, and these are hugely popular, Mexica and Downforce. Wolfgang Kramer, the reason why I even got to meet Wolfgang Kramer was Restoration Games was literally just handing off the Dice Tower Award that he had won for Best Reprint for Downforce. And he's this lovely older gentleman. His, I believe, spouse was with him. They were so kind and charming. And when I meet somebody that I think is just their brain is special and their influence and impact on the hobby is unique, it's a pretty amazing moment to me. So meeting Wolfgang Kramer and then having him turn out to be just lovely.
Yeah, that's great.
That was a very special thing for me. And then kind of a little surprised that I was really touched by. There is an artist named Piero Le Chevalier, and this is something you can do at bigger conventions. The artists will be there. There will be game designers who will sign games for you. There are artists who will sketch for you or sign pieces for you as well. And I really admired Piero's art on a game called Kerr, which is out by Hurricane. And it's kind of actually Mad Maxy because Kerr stands for kerosene. But you take this kind of theoretically desolate setting, and Piero's art just made this desert essentially with the stacked rocks and it feels rich and just warm, and it's beautiful illustration. And I had wanted to meet Piero and maybe get a sketch or something, but the timing hadn't worked out. And somehow Piero found out and did a sketch for me on his own and brought that to the booth. Amazing. And dropped it off. And that was incredible. And it's gorgeous. I do not understand artists and their talent. I don't understand game designers and their talent, to be honest. So those are kind of special things I think that only happen at these large conventions. And if that's the kind of thing that you would hope to experience, finding your way to get to a larger convention in whatever continent you're on, I think is probably in your future.
That's pretty awesome. I'm a little jealous, I must say.
Oh, well, whatever, little Ms. I played Airship Cities.
Oh boy.
Alrighty, let's start to to think about wrapping up because I know you're tired and it's late. But I know you counted your games, Mandi.
Darn
How'd
right
you
I
do?
did. So in just basically my 2 luggage that I brought, 51 games plus like 3 little expansion packs. So that is not bad. What about you, Suzanne?
No, this is about you, Mandi.
Oh, no,
Wait a
no.
minute.
Let's
I
talk-
stopped counting after I beat your number.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't count. It's a weird thing. I may have gotten more games, but many of them were small. They're teeny tiny. They
All
don't
the
count, right, Mandi?
rationalizing. Yeah, mm-hmm.
All right, moving right along. It's not about how many, it's about how much fun they are.
All right, I'll let that go.
So yeah, I think just thank you to everybody who came out and said hi at the booth.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how rewarding and meaningful it is to get to meet people that listen to the show and say complimentary things. And it's not that we're there always to get our back patted or anything,
Right.
but it's an interesting thing that we speak into microphones and it just kind of goes out there. And
Yeah.
you never really know if it's connecting. And we know with some people it doesn't. And that's okay.
Sure.
But to have multiple people come by and be happy to meet us and give us input on the show, it's emotional. I mean, honestly, it's emotional for me. And so thank you to everybody who did that. I feel very lucky to be able to go to that and meet you all out there.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was someone had mentioned, actually a few people, the excitement. When we talk about games, they're like, you're so excited. And I could tell, like, it makes me happy to talk about it and listen to it. And I'm like, yeah, it's not fake. Like, we really enjoy it. And I'm glad that it's being conveyed and people are really having that feeling as well. So thank you. Well, we also have to do one special thank you to our friend Uli. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a story there. Poor Uli thought Suzanne was making fun of him because anytime she'd answer something, yeah, because that's something he says. But we were just around him for so much time. We just picked up on it.
He's that influential.
Exactly. So if you stopped by the booth, you would have seen a very tall German, and that was Uli. And it was great that he was able to provide English and Deutsch, so German, to people who needed that, the instructions to find the show in German or just to have a chat in German. So thank you so much, Uli. It was a pleasure having you and a delight having you at the booth.
And yeah, I hope that if you got to come by the booth, we hope we get to see you again in person in the future. If you have any inkling or inclination and ability to go to the Spiel at Essen, I cannot recommend it highly enough. I'm very confident that the Spiel is my favorite big game convention. There's something different about the energy there than a Gen Con or an Origins. And it was an absolute delight. And so I really hope I get to go again.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
I think that's a wrap for our episode. We will definitely be back into a normal swing on our next episode, maybe with a shelf staple or a one and done. We got a lot of feedback on the one and done segment that people really enjoyed it. So we definitely plan on continuing that. Mm-hmm. Send us your questions for a Q&A. You can email me, Suzanne at dicetower.com.
And Mandi, that's Mandi with an I at dicetower.com.
Next episode 580, Tom and Eric will be back talking about team games.
Ooh.
Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vasil Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvasil.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandi, and Eric, with assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, Rob Searing, and Jeff Rademacher. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, it is that time again for Two Truths and a Lie. So let's reveal from the last episode. So for myself, when playing a new game, I like to be the first player. I like to be the last player. Or I like to be somewhere in the middle. If you guessed the lie as when playing a game, I like to be the first player, you would be accurate. I despise being the first player. I need to see how the game kind of goes before I play.
Can confirm.
Yeah, so no, don't like being first player. Okay, Suze, what about you?
Last episode we did this. I said I wanted to be a lawyer when I was growing up. I wanted to be a teacher when I was growing up. Or I wanted to be a singer when I was growing up.
Okay.
And the lie was I wanted to be a singer.
Ah!
I have never been a good singer. I have never been under any illusions that I was a good singer. Don't get me wrong, I like singing. Who doesn't?
Sure.
But I am awful at it. I am a terrible singer. So no aspirations of singing for me.
All right. Well, that's fair. All right. Well, new ones for this episode. And I apologize if I've done this before. I don't have a recollection of it, but hey, why not? Let's give it a go. I've colored my hair blue-black before. I've colored my hair green before. And I've colored my hair red before. So, good luck with that one. What about you, Suze?
I know you, and I've seen your hair in a bunch of other colors too, so.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
Wow. All right, new this episode, here we go. I own 6 copies of Lupin Chewy. I own 2 copies of Roll Through the Ages. And I own 5 copies of Crisscross.
Interesting. I definitely we'll talk about it next episode. Good luck, everyone. This episode is sponsored by Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs Gemstone Mining Game is a light Press Your Luck set collection game where players will take the role of one of the 7 dwarfs mining for gems, based on the popular Quartz gameplay by Passport Studios. Players will be competing to get the most pie points by turning in their gems to Snow White. Be careful not to pull too many obsidian, though. If a player pulls 2 obsidian, their cart overflows and they lose all the precious gems they have collected over the round. Whomever has the most pie points after 5 days is the winner. It's a great game for anyone who is a fan of the classic Disney film Snow White or a fun Press Your Luck game. It's for ages 8 and up, 3 to 7 players, and the MSRP is $34.95.